Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Ask Mish, where I, Mish, am here to answer all of the questions, all of the important questions in life. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents here. You guys have been asking some amazing questions, so make sure you keep them coming. Please DM me, friend me, follow me, whatever, on Instagram at Mish of Nutrish Mish. I'll link it in the show notes. All right, so this week we have a relationship question, and this one just really hit home for me. I think the topic that she brought up and the problem that she brought up, I think it's the reason why my marriage actually failed. And I think it's such an underrated problem. And I think a lot of people experience it and they experience it in different ways. I think it's the reason why sometimes people feel constant conflict in relationships. I think it's a reason why people feel very stagnant in relationships. I think it's why sometimes like sex can get monotonous in relationships or people can feel like roommates over time. I think it's a problem that we address the symptoms of, but we never really get to the root cause of. And if you know how I work with nutrition, that's like my vibe is getting to the root cause of things. And I happen to really like get into the root cause of this particular one because, like I said, I think after lots of analyzation and therapy bills, that this was probably the main thing I was experiencing in my relationship. So, if my kind of take on it helps people choose partners that are better for them or helps fix relationship problems that they didn't quite know how to address in the first place, then that is amazing. So I hope this episode resonates with you guys. At the end, for funsies, we have some rapid fire questions. So my staff has picked some. I'm afraid to see them, but I will address those as well at the end. But let's dive into this week's question. My boyfriend is a great guy. Guys, I love when we start questions off like this. All right, my boyfriend is a great guy. Sorry. Kind, supportive. We get along really well, but there's one thing that's been bothering me. He doesn't do some of the traditional things that I would want a boyfriend to do. He and I always argue about who is going to pay, who is going to be driving, who is going to be taking the lead in planning our dates. I know we're living in a time where gender equality is important, and I don't want to sound old fashioned, but is it hypocritical of me to be feeling this way in this day and age? I think, I don't think this girl knows that, in my opinion at least, she has hit on one of the most underrated problems when it comes to finding a partner. When we are talking about picking a partner, right, we're thinking like 6'5", blue eyes, finance, like we're thinking like that, right? But what we're not thinking about is this a good like energetic match for me? I'm gonna coin this. I'm gonna coin this an energy mismatch. Now I have this like habit of like making things up and thinking that I have invented them, but in fact they have been invented before me, but called something different. This might be one of those things. So if this is already a thing, I apologize. Please let me know. But I'm gonna just call it an energy mismatch just for our vernacular here. She is experiencing this in she wants to have a feeling from the relationship that she is in. She's not saying she needs him to pay. She's not saying she needs him to drive. She's not saying she needs those things. She's saying she wants the feeling of being taken care of. When you kind of put all of those things together, she wants the feeling of being taken care of. She wants the feeling of being supportive. She wants the feeling of safety. She wants to be able to be in her feminine energy. So for her, she needs to be with a guy that likes to be in his masculine energy. And before you guys come at me, right? Gender roles are not the same thing as masculine and feminine energy. I think we get that very confused with traditional gender roles, or when we're feeling that imbalance of energy, we communicate it in terms of traditional gender roles just because like that's like the closest point of comparison that we have. But I think when people are saying they want these things, they're not saying that they actually want these things. They're saying they want the energy behind these things, if that makes sense. Now, I'm saying masculine and feminine energy. I don't mean boy and girl energy. I mean masculine and feminine energy. Every single person in the world can have masculine energy, and every single person in the world can have feminine energy. And every single person does. It's just which energy they prefer to be in. We don't have to call it masculine and feminine. We can call it purple energy and pink energy, or blue energy and yellow energy. But what it's called in the world is masculine and feminine. But please understand, I'm not talking about gender roles or genders when I'm talking about that. It's just what these energies are called. Now, masculine energy refers to like productive energy. It's like authoritative. It's like thinking. It's assertive. It's like making moves. It's like protective. It's providing. Like that's masculine energy. Now, for me, for example, when I am at work, I am in my masculine energy. Like I'm never, rarely in my feminine energy at work. Maybe if I'm trying to do something creative, but most of my day, I'm in my masculine energy, even though I'm a girl. Again, has nothing to do with genders. Now, feminine energy, like is, it's nurturing, it's creative, it's empathetic, it's sympathetic, it's like that kind of like almost like caregivery, like chills sort of vibe. Like that's feminine energy. Now, what I learned for myself, at least, is I love to be in my masculine energy at work during the day, but when I'm home, I like to be in my feminine energy. I know people who are, when they're single, they like to be in their masculine energy, but when they're in a relationship, they like to be in their feminine energy. I know guys that like to be in their feminine energy in their relationships. They're super passive. They don't like to make decisions. They want to do whatever their partner wants to do. I know women in relationships that like to be in their masculine energy. They like to do everything. They like to be in charge. They want to do things the way they want to do it. They don't want anybody telling them what to do. And that's good. There's so many different variations of what people like and what people want, what kind of energy they want to show up for in different seasons, in different parts of the day or whatever. But I think a big issue that people experience and they don't know how to put their finger on it, and I know I didn't, this was actually, I think, why my marriage didn't work out, is because people sometimes choose a partner that's really nice and makes them feel good and is great, but they're maybe not the best like energy match for them. And that's sort of like what I experienced. And I think that's what this girl is experiencing. Now, just because you're experiencing this in a relationship doesn't mean you can't change it. Like, I think talking about it is a huge thing. But I think when you're talking about it in terms of like the energy behind it and less about like the transactional piece, I think is important. So I think, the way she is experiencing it is she's like, well, I want him to do these things. But when I tell him to do these things, it's like, okay, but like, what about gender equality? Because we're talking about like the transactional part of it. We're not talking about like the energy behind it. Now, this guy might not be a good energetic match for her, and there's going to be signs of that, which I'm going to go over how to kind of identify if your relationship is not a good energetic match. Or it could just be that maybe like, you guys have kind of fallen, into something, and it's something where once you bring it to your attention, you can fall back into it, and you can assume the rules that you guys are both comfortable with. But I think it's important to know what it is and know how to talk to your partner about it and recognize when it's a problem. So my parents are actually a really interesting example because, I keep saying we're not talking about gender roles. My parents have a very traditional gender role. Like my mom has never worked. Well, okay, she says she's like, I worked till I was 28. Okay, cool. So she's been she's been retired since she's been 28. She's never worked in my lifetime. She wanted to be a housewife. That's what she wanted to do. So my dad, from a traditional gender point of view, has financially provided for my family. But if you hung out with my mom and dad, you would see that my dad is much more naturally in his feminine energy, and my mom is much more in the masculine energy. My mom likes to be the one that takes charge. My mom likes to be the one making decisions. My dad's super cool with that. My dad likes to nurture my mom. My dad likes to be like, whatever you want, go with the flow. Very, very like cool. Like that's just sort of like the dynamic that works for them. So while they might have the traditional gender role, like as far as their energy goes there, and there's such a good energetic match that way, because if my mom married somebody who also, let's say gender role wise, like financially provided for her, but that person was also as much in their masculine as she was, then she and him would butt heads constantly. Like there would be no way that would last. Like they would always be fighting. They'd always be bickering. They'd always be like fighting for control. Like that would have been a bad energetic match. So my parents are an interesting example because they have very traditional gender roles, but my dad's more naturally in his feminine energy and my mom is naturally more in her masculine energy, and that just works for them at home. So like I said, it's nothing to do with guys and girls. It's everything to do with the energy. So like you could be in a situation where both people are like in their masculine energy, kind of like I was saying before. And again, you might experience those like control issues, like bickering. There's also going to be like, I think, a big lack of like emotional connection that would be experienced in the relationship. If you have two people in a relationship that are like more in their feminine, that's sort of how I experienced my last relationship. Like I experienced it like stagnation, like everyone was like very like nurtured and like supported and like whatever you want to do, but there was like no one like taking charge and like nobody leading. And the way I experienced that, at least, it sort of forced one of us, and I felt like it was me to like be in my masculine energy more when I really wasn't comfortable or didn't want to be in that energy at home. And then I was like forcing it, like I was like, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that, but like it just was it just didn't feel, it wasn't the energy that I wanted to be in at home, but I had a hard time articulating that because I didn't really understand it. Another sign is when two people are in their feminine energy too much. There's an avoidance of like hard conversations. Like my ex and I, we like never fought. We never fought really. It was kind of weird. But it was because we were both experiencing ourselves in our and more of our feminine energy at home. That's just like sort of how we like to be. Um, I think when there's that lack of um, or a misbalance or a mismatch, energy mismatch, I think that's where sexual attraction sort of gets boring too. So like when sex gets like monotonous or whatever, or there's like diminished sexual attraction, I think it's because the polarity of masculine and feminine energy in relationships sort of like gets like dull, like like so way to ignite that, I think, is really to redefine what roles, energetically, you guys want to take when it comes to masculine and feminine energy. Now, by personal experience, being, in an energetically mismatched relationship was it was really hard because, you're with a really great genuine person, but it's just, I even used those words with that before I knew what they were. I would say I felt unsafe, but like I had a hard time like explaining what that meant because I didn't understand the energy behind it. And was also getting it really confused with the gender role piece because I was like, I like to work. I make my own money. I don't need a guy to like support me. Um, so then I was like, wait, but if I want to be the feminine person in the relationship, does that mean like I have to be like barefoot and pregnant and not working? Like I also was getting the gender roles confused with the energy behind it. So I think it's really important to understand the two. What I will say now is I will say that the person I'm with now is now like here's the fun thing about me. Like I'm very alpha, like I'm a very alpha female. So I need a very alpha male, but not in a toxic masculinity way. Like I need somebody who like I trust and I respect and I like can really like they have to match as they have to match me. And when I started dating him, I asked my best friend at the time, I was like, what is it that I like about this guy? Like, what do I like about him? And my friend hit the nail on the head, and I'll never forget it. He was like, you trust him to take the wheel. He's like, you've never trusted anyone to take the wheel before. Like, you trust him to take the wheel. Like, he makes that. And we've never had a conversation about masculine and feminine energy before, but like, that's how I experienced it. Like, I trusted him to take the wheel. I trusted him to like take over so I could like turn my brain off. I could be in my feminine energy. In turn, I like was able to kind of like be that like nurturing energy in his life. And both of us have been able to accomplish like so much in the time that we've been together that it's not that we couldn't before, but it's just been such a nice flow and it just kind of comes so easily because we know we have that like energetic support of each other. So I think energy and mismatch is such an underrated thing in relationships that we don't talk about enough, and I think we do get it super confused with gender roles. I think the first thing is just knowing yourself and knowing like how you like to show up and when in what energy, and when it comes to your partner, like knowing what you need from them in terms of energy. And the polarity is really beautiful when you can achieve it. It's just that sometimes people fall out of it. I think especially when you've been in a relationship for a long time. When you're first dating someone, you're like kind of like trying to impress them. You're showing up, you're like doing things, whatever, and then people get comfortable after a while. And if it's not truly who you are, you can kind of like fall, get a little fall into like the opposite energy. But so in this case, with her, do I think this is a make or break? No, I don't. I think it's maybe a conversation. I think she just needs to know how to articulate and explain what her needs are and what she wants. Now, if it's a situation where like kind of like in my marriage where they're both more comfortable in their feminine energy, that might be something to address. But I don't think that's the case in all cases. I think sometimes it's just a matter of a conversation, but like the right conversation. And I'll tell you, like when you have that polarity in your relationship, it's like it's really, really beautiful, and it just makes you like I just noticed myself like I'm a better person. I've been able to accomplish a lot more, and I think he would stay the same. So there's definitely something to be said for exploring that in your relationship, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. It's something that you could work towards. All right, let's do some rapid fire questions where I will, as the title implies, answer questions rapidly. How do you feel about one night stands? Fine. Actually, okay, fun fact about me, I've never had one. Yeah. So I need connection when I'm having sex with somebody. So like I've never had a one night stand. I only like to sleep with my friends, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. No, I like need connection, and like I get it like for I get it for anybody, but like for guys especially, like I get it because it's like there's like a chase involved. Like you have to like kind of like woo the like get the girl. Like for a girl, it's like it's not hard. Like there's no chase. Like it's like whatever. So I've never had one. I like to have connection, and if I don't know you, I've probably never slept with you. But I'm not against them. I just personally have never had one. Just a little fun fact about me. Um, who is someone you don't get along with? Like a type of person? I struggle with like black and white thinkers. People only think in black and white. I struggle with those types of people. Um, like my mom. I'm just kidding. She listens to the podcast. I learned. No, I'm just kidding. But like black and white thinkers, I struggle with. I struggle with people that don't can't like see like shades of gray. Can't see both sides. People who are very like polarizing. I struggle with sometimes. That's a great question. Weird question, but a good question. Are my boobs? Yeah, my boobs are real. Do they appear not real? Yeah, they're on mine. I grew them myself. Would you be mad if you saw your guy liking girls' pics on Instagram? That's a good one. Um, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me. I could see why it would bother some girls. I think it depends on the guy and the intention and everything, but it wouldn't bother me. But I can see why that would bother some people. What made you want to start a nutrition company? I just didn't like the way other people were doing it in the field, and I felt like I could do it better. And in my opinion, we did. We really get to the root of the problem. We don't get people reliant on like a philosophy of like a product and injection or whatever. Like, when if I get people losing weight because they stop eating carbs, okay, now you're relying on that. So when you continue eating when you go back eating carbs, you gain the weight back. When you stop taking the injection, you gain the weight back. Like we've actually created a solution where people are only relying on themselves. So we just kind of like did it differently. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys want your questions, advice, needs, your situationships addressed, whatever, make sure that you DM me at Mish of Nutrishmish. I'll link it in the show notes. Also, we are accepting a few applications for our new project called Mish Mindset. I love being able to help people one-on-one, like truly level up their life. Like I have this like weird ability, I guess, to get to like the root of people's problems and remove roadblocks. And I've taken on a few people for this project, and the transformations have just been like so freaking cool and so sick to watch. I've been super proud of the people that we've had in this program so far. I'm opening up my schedule for like a couple more people one on one. So if you're like really ready to level up your life, you feel like you have like a roadblock, that's something holding you back from like truly living the life that you're supposed to be living, I want to help you. So I'm going to put the application in the show notes. We have super limited spots available, but I do want to take on a couple more people. So if this sounds like you, make sure you grab your spot. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you next Thursday.